Alright, guys, it's a very rainy Sunday here in Shanghai, and I want to have a little bit of a rant at you about martial arts internet culture. So, I was watching this TED talk this morning where this guy was talking about the impact that social media, TikTok in particular, the algorithms are having on the language that we use in everyday life, and hence our thinking processes and our view on the world. And it got me thinking about the way that internet culture is shaping martial art culture. And for today, I'm drinking a Hunan Chenliang cha. So Chenliang cha is Chenliang basically means 1,000 liang. Liang's a traditional system of measurement, roughly 100 grams or so. And so this is an aged fermented tea, very similar to pu'er, but it's not called pu'er because it's not from that region. It's from Hunan province, and this is traditionally a tea that was produced and then transported up to the grasslands of places like Mongolia and other sort of steppe cultures up there, and so hence it being compressed into these large bricks and then aged and fermented, so that it would last these long journeys on horseback. It's a very nice tea. It's one that you won't really find outside of China very often. As you can see, it can be a bit of a pain to break up because it's very, very densely packed. So you really do have to just literally just take a knife into it and just sort of literally just break pieces off. But this one that I've got here, I bought in, I think I bought it around 2012. So I've had this well over 10 years. And it's aged very nice. In the beginning, I wasn't a big fan of it. I thought that it was kind of lacking in complexity and flavour, but I left it sitting, and I came back to it last year, and I found that it had aged very, very nicely. And so it's very, very smooth, got a very deep flavour. So I'm very, very happy with it. Anyway, so martial arts and internet culture. So, I was thinking about this the other day. It's like, this movement to short form video and just social media in general is really, really destroying our attention spans, right? And martial arts it's a gradual process. It's a long and slow process of learning. And a big part of it as well is the going out and discovering, right? You have to find things, and particularly with traditional martial arts, you have to sometimes travel to faraway places to find the things that you want to find, right? To find the arts or the methods that you want. And I feel like that now we're moving into this, algorithm-driven, attention-grabbing era. We're kind of losing a sense of awe at sort of bigger and more epic things. We're sort of losing a sense of wanting to seek and discover things, and we're wanting instant gratification, right? I mean, I can remember in the early 2000s, as a teenager, before I came to China, I can remember, the early days of YouTube. There was like a couple of Chinese martial art videos. There was really not much, authentic, genuine stuff. There was some sort of, I don't know, stuff that had been filmed in China and then re-uploaded of, some old masters somewhere. Or there was like a couple of foreigners that were going and filming stuff, but very, very little. There was some like written accounts, for example, Yarik's very good website, China from Inside, that has really good sort of early documentation of him going around China and meeting all these different masters of different internal Chinese styles. But yeah, overall it was very hard to get good stuff, and so I'd go on eBay and I would look for secondhand martial art books, and I'd try and get any information I could and read as much as I could, and that inspired in me this feeling that I wanted to come out to Asia, and I wanted to seek this stuff out for myself, and almost, it kind of sounds naive, but childish, but I was 15, 16 at the time, but almost sort of like an Indiana of martial arts kind of thing, right? Coming out and going around China and getting into the thick of it and finding these lost, mysterious skills. And then that inspired me to do it, and I actually came out here. And then through the 2010s, there was a lot of foreigners that were coming out to China and doing this, and it was like you could pretty much go to any city or place in China, and if you walked around long enough, inevitably you would get the dreadlocked, greasy-haired, kung fu pants, fei yue shoes, French guy or Canadian guy or whoever, with a sword or a spear on their back, walking along the Chinese street with an old Chinese master, right? You'd find these people everywhere, and I'm just not really seeing that anymore. I don't really see any of these kung fu nerds here. I'm sure there's some around, and if you are, like, reach out to me. I'd love to meet up with you, but yeah, that was I feel like that's really a sort of gone by era. And then we kind of got to this phase where YouTube became a big thing. You started getting more and more people making martial art videos, myself being one of many. I think it's a really good thing for the martial arts. You started to see a lot of different styles and methods. You started to see how things were really practiced. A lot of myths could be broken because there's so much more access to information than we previously had. But over time, what's happened is it's kind of like the enshittification. I don't know if you guys have heard that phrase before, but the enshittification of products and services basically refers to things like Amazon Prime and Netflix and stuff, where the product was once really, really good, but as more and more people have started using it, they've not only raised the prices but lowered the quality and then increased the bar for like the premium tier. And I feel like chasing the algorithms has done this with all YouTube content, but for this topic, martial art context specifically, because now obviously good content should be shown to more people and bad content shown to less people, and people it should be audience driven. But the problem is it's gone so far that it's become more about grabbing our attention than really giving us something of quality. I mean, think about when was the last time there's been a masterpiece blockbuster movie made? Not for a long time, right? Like, movies now are made to just grab your attention, get you into the cinema or streaming, make you pay to watch the movie. How much revenue can they generate? And then it's forgotten. They're rehashing the same movies, the same concepts, the same sort of archetypal characters, and the same sort of cheesy comedy dialogues. Like, it's all just a formula, right? And music is the same thing. And I feel like this is the same with martial arts as well, because what we're seeing now is a lot of channels that are coming up quite fast, and there's a few sort of overly done formulas that people seem to realize work, but I personally feel are offering very little real value to the martial art community or to the betterment of martial arts. So the first one is this sort of gotcha style expose stuff, right? And you've got these channels where it's someone sitting in their bedroom and they're they're taking the most extreme examples of someone doing something stupid in traditional martial arts, right? Whether it's some deranged old Chinese uncle walking into a Sandow or a boxing gym and challenging him to a fight when he's half drunk and getting his ass kicked, and then everyone going, oh look, that guy had done a couple of years of Tai Chi and he walked in and he tried to get in a fight and he got his ass kicked. Tai Chi doesn't work, it's all bullshit, it's all fake. And these kind of things, right? People doing this no-touch stuff and whatever, like, ridiculous woo-woo stuff that they're pulling off, right? So there's this kind of like gotcha culture where they're taking the most extreme stuff that does not represent what the vast majority of us as Chinese martial artists or just traditional martial artists are doing. People that are of no relation to us at all, fringe, deranged people, taking that, putting it out there and making people feel that that's representative of us. And mocking, Chinese martial arts. And then you end up getting it in the comments. The amount of comments I get, like, I'll interview a master and inevitably I'll get a comment with, "Oh, try that against someone who knows BJJ." And it's like, hello, I do BJJ myself. I'm not particularly good, but I do it. And so, okay, he's tried this against someone who knows BJJ, right? But I don't know, people, they seem to be unable to discern between extreme polarized examples of things and the vast majority of mainstream sort of regular people within that community. And so that's one sort of thing, right? And occasionally in the beginning it was entertaining, like a couple of the channels that were covering some of the antics of Xu Xiaodong. I used to watch and have a bit of a laugh in the beginning, but it just became so old, and then it's just the same formula where it's like, how many more ridiculous examples of fights can we find from the Chinese internet, and then just sit there in my bedroom and watch them and give some like arrogant, self-absorbed commentary. It and people still watch this stuff, right? But I don't know. So the second type is these sort of investigation, expose videos where it's always, I investigated blah 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 style, and then they sort of cherry pick historical facts, and they do it in a sort of pseudo journalistic way. So to someone that doesn't really know about that style or the material being presented, it appears to be quite believable and quite convincing. But again, it's usually made by people that have no real understanding of the content themselves. They've pretty much, it's like a 5-minute ChatGPT, made script. And then they're, and quite often it's rage bait as well. Purely for the sake of getting people to watch this, and the people that do know what they're talking about to completely disagree with them, but then to kind of drown that out by mainstream people that not mainstream people, but people that don't know the material, to then go, oh yeah, well, it sounds like what he's saying is making sense, therefore he's right, therefore all these Chinese martial artists have no idea what they're talking about, right? That's kind of another one that I see quite a lot. But like, regardless of whatever format videos are, there is very much an agenda, I feel, to create a division between traditional and modern martial arts. And to me, it's a false division, because martial arts are martial arts, right? And modern martial arts are built on the basis of traditional martial arts, right? That's just fact. And essentially you have striking, grappling, kicking, you have these various forms of attacking someone and defending yourself. It's really just variations of the same stuff, and different training methodologies depending on what the focus of what you want to do is. Somebody wants to fight in the octagon, therefore they need to be constantly doing resistance training. They need to be an absolute, top physical fitness. They need to be, able to be calm in the face of extreme violence, adrenaline, an audience watching them, someone pummeling their head in while they're on the floor. They need to be in absolute peak condition and skill level to do that. But not everybody wants to do that. Some people, they just want a little bit of self-defense to feel more confident, or they want to learn some cool forms, or they want to get in better shape. There's a multitude of reasons that people practice martial arts, and so trying to create this like false narrative that something is only valuable if it's preparing you for the UFC, to me is absolutely ridiculous. Because also, I train BJJ, I train Muay Thai, I train Mantis. I've learned lots of different traditional martial arts, throughout the 20 plus years I've done martial arts, and like I've never really found that division exists in reality. A lot of the guys that I train BJJ with do traditional martial arts as well. My first BJJ teacher was also a long-time practitioner of 7-Star Mantis. We had a guy who was a Wing Chun teacher in the class. We had quite a few karate guys in the class. We had there's a few other people that have done other traditional martial arts. In the same way I train here in Shanghai, there are people that do all different martial arts as well that come and train BJJ with us, and there's no division that they look down on those arts. They just, the people that practice them, they enjoy practicing both, and the people that only practice one enjoy the one that they practice. But the internet culture is kind of trying to foment this division between us, and the amount of comments and stuff I get, as I just mentioned, with people trying to claim some sort of, and it works both ways as well. You get a lot of traditional martial artists jumping on MMA videos and going, yeah, well, that's not going to work because they'll just kick you in the balls and jab you in the eyes and use their Dimak to kill you. And it's like, well, no, I don't think most traditional martial artists actually really think like that. But look, martial arts are martial arts. We just enjoy the practice. But I suppose this need for instant gratification, this rage bait for the sake of views, I feel like we're commodifying the martial arts, and we're kind of we're popularizing them, but we're also watering them down, and we're also losing something deeper. I think that there is a huge value in your development as a person from not just learning the martial art, but having, going through that process of having to seek it out, whether it's traveling to a faraway place to find a style that's not readily available where you live, whether it's, going through different schools, just trying to find the right one for you, whether it's the slow grind of learning and not just being given all the secrets in one go. I think that the journey of it is also part of what helps to cultivate you, and it also makes the gains so much more rewarding than if it's just handed to you. And sometimes when I've been teaching, people are asking me about inner door mantis forms, bajo and things like that, and I'm like, dude, we've just met. You haven't learned anything from me. You might have an okay level in something else, but I had to wait more than 5 years to learn this stuff. And when I did, it felt so precious to finally get this advanced material. It made me really cherish and treasure it. And so I'm not just going to hand it out randomly to somebody that I'm not close to, or haven't, we don't have a certain trust that's built up over time. It's not that I want to be secretive, but I want the people that learn this to cherish it just as much as I did when I got to learn it. And so I don't think we should just be handing everything out casually and sort of lessening the value of it. But I think that's kind of the double-edged sword of readily available information, because we know so much more than we knew in the past, and so people can make more informed decisions to not go and learn fake made up crap. But at the same time, it also makes people more have, you know, sort of higher expectations and be more demanding in that, you know, I need to have this and you need to give it. So I guess I'm saying all of this to say that you know, we're living in times where everything's becoming more polarized and more divisive. Algorithms are driving our attention span down. They're curating the kind of information that we're being fed, not necessarily in an organic or a good way. There's a lot of good information out there, but you have to, I think now you have to make a very concerted effort to find good information. And what I'd like to say also to you know, I really want to see more people making martial art YouTube content. I really, really do. But, you know, I don't want to see stuff that's just, you know, dreary algorithm driven, rage bait, low effort stuff. I want to see things that inspire me. You know, I want to see the kind of content that I created is the stuff that I've always wanted to see, right? I want to be inspired to go and seek something out far away, you know, to go to the grasslands of Mongolia and experience traditional wrestling, or, you know, go to you know, that island in Indonesia, I can't remember which one it is, but they have those big, like, village to village spear battles. You know, I want to be inspired to seek things out that are far away and beyond my grasp, and I guess for a moment to kind of just escape, you know, everyday life. And I want to be inspired to seek out, you know, more things in my own life. And so yeah, I would encourage you guys who are making YouTube videos or thinking about making YouTube videos to just think about that. Think about making something that's going to be a lasting legacy, something that people are going to look back on in years to come and say, you know, that was really great stuff. You know, that was a masterpiece of you know, YouTube martial art creation. It wasn't just a slap together, you know, here's what the algorithms want, you know, Tai Chi versus Aikido, who's going to live and who's going to die, or, you know, I exposed Tai Chi, here's the truth, whatever, like, crap that people are making, you know. Please, guys, just make something to last and just don't be like a one-hit, you know, 1 minute wonder. Anyway, as always, thank you for indulging me in my rant. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk, and I'll see you in another video.